Welcome to the weekly shir of the Zera Shimshon, hosted by Yosef Lange, if you didn't know me already. And it's Tes Zayin Adar Aleph. Yesterday was Shushan Purim in Cotton, and we're heading for Shushan Purim Gadol. Okay, Mitzvah Shem. Tavshin Pei Base. And I'm reading from the Zera Shimshon, Parshat Tisa this week. And it's Kapitel Dalet, if you have the book to follow along. And it says the pasuk, Ach es shabsoisai tishmeiru. Pasuk in this week's Parsha. It's difficult. Lama kasav shabsoisai, Lashon Rabbi. Why does it say shabsoisai, Lashon plural? V'loi omar es ha-Shabbos ki Moshe mitzina b'chol Torah, like we find in the rest of the Torah. Omilas ach is also ach es shabsoisai. It's also ma bolamayit. Ach is a miut. So what does it come to eliminate? Gam yesh the doctor gal masha omer chazal in the Perek Gimel Deshuas daf chaf omid beis shezocher v'shomer b'dibur echad nemru. That in the first luchos it says zocher, in the second luchos it says shomer. They were both said in one speech, which humans can't do. V'lama dafka b'dibur es harishayin is kasav zocher v'shniya is kasav zomer. Why dafka is at first tablets it says Zachar, and the second tablets it says Shomer. And first, and why Tamia Gedola Shabadibra Sarishain is nice and because of Tama Shmir Shabbos. In the first luchos, it gives a reason for keeping Shabbos. He says Ki Sheishes Yami Masa Hashem, because 6 days God made the earth. I know Zachar Labris Labrias Oilam. Remember the creation of the world. Vishniya says Nasan Tam Acher gives a different reason, which is Zachar. Zecher Leitzias Mitzrayim. Remember going out of Egypt. It says V'zacharta ki eved ha'isa b'Mitzrayim. Okay, Nagdim Litaretz. Look, we'll start to give an explanation. Mad Salik Damina, what it comes out of here. Omer Chazal said the Gemara in Eruvin Daf Nun Dalet Amud Aleph ki kishenitnu luchos harishonos the Yisrael, when they gave the first tablets to the Jewish people, nitnu lahem cherus miyetzahara. They were freed from the Yetzer Hara, just like back in Gan Eden, and they were also freed from the shibud of the kingdoms of the world. Well, they amomar and tell them, it says in Pei Beis, Kapitel Vav, excuse me, Ani amarti elakim atem ukishachatu be'egel chazer Yetzer Hara lemekayimai. So when they sinned with the Chet Egel, the Yetzer Hara went right back where it came from. וידוע מה שכסו המפורשים זכרנו לברכה שאם היו מסעכבים ישראל במצרים עד תשלום 430 שנה, if the Jews had stayed in Egypt another 200 years, whatever, 210 years, 220 years, they would have been k'moshe nigzar aleim, that was decreed upon them, no tricks in the psukim, right? Lo haisa oid uma lashon yichayil yishleit b'hem. Then no nation or would be able to rule over them. Since they had to get out quickly because they were going into the Memsah Shari Tuma, okay, they almost went into the 50th state of Tuma. So the rest of the time, the 220 years that was left over there, they had to go into other galias, other diasporas. Okay, he talked about this before. So in the first, by the first tablets, when they were like angels, okay, mishum hachi shaykh iker Shabbos hashmirasam bezach. So the iker Shabbos was by them the aspect of remembering. Shezachor zu mitzvahs essay. This is a mitzvahs essay, just like we say kiddush is a mitzvahs essay daraisa, but shomor loy is a loisase. The essay, the Shabbos, who the kadsha b'maychal b'mishnah b'divrei Torah. The essay of Shabbos still remains, that we have to make kaddish the Shabbos with food, drink, and divrei Torah. And the shomer haynu shaloi lasais by malacha. The kaidim shachatu shalahayu alai lahem oidei tzahara v'hayu kimay alakim. Before they sinned, the Chet HaEgel, they didn't have the Yetzirah, and they were released from that. They were Chorus, Alaluches, it was Cherus, Mi Yetzirah. They were like angels. Even in the weekday, they weren't doing work. Like it will be in the future, like the Yeshayahu says in the Samach Aleph, Kapitel Hey, Ve'omdu Zarim Ve'rohu Tzaynechem. The non-Jews will come and will shepherd our flocks for us. In other words, they will do our work for us. And they were not worried about eating and drinking either. So just the remembrance of the creation of the world would be sufficient for us. After they sinned, we have to be worried about doing malacha and Shabbos. That's mainly what they knew at that time. So in the first tablets, they wouldn't need to have any other diaspora. The reason for keeping Shabbos would be because of remembering the creation of the world. But after they sinned, it was renewed, a new aspect of keeping, of having to keep Shmir Shabbos, of not to eat, not to do Malacha. Bishvil Yitzias Mitzrayim. So that they needed to remember that they worked, how hard they worked in Egypt. Because they went out early from Egypt, they would be obligated to keep other Galios. In the Gemara in Shabbos Kufiyat Ches Amud Aleph, Amud Beis rather, Amrin and Kol HaShmishamer Es HaShabbos Nitzel Mishibud Malchias. Anybody who keeps Shabbos is saved from the shibud, the servitude of other kingdoms. That's why the Achreinos were given that they had to keep themselves from doing work on Shabbos. The pasuk says, "L'meimer v'zacharta ge'eved ha'yisav eretz Yisrael v'yivtacha Hashem alekecha misham b'yad chazak b'zorei netuya." So they had to remember that they were slaves in Egypt, and they worked very hard, and they were redeemed from there with a strong hand. Why do you need to tell you it was with a strong hand? Because it wasn't completed the number of years they were supposed to be there. And the end of the pasuk says, therefore you should keep the Shabbos, the day of Shabbos, in order to redeem their souls from the servitude of the other kingdoms. That's a segula when you eat, of course, the 3 meals. It says in Shmais, in this parsha, this kisisa, because this pasuk was said after the Chet HaEgel, like it says in the Shmais Rabbah, Nun Aleph Parsha Ches. O Yahweh Zahav Shebemishkan v'Yechaper al Zahav HaEgel. So the gold in the Mishkan is an atonement for the gold of the Chet HaEgel. Because of Ach, why does it say the word Ach? It's a miut. Leimer Ato Shechatasem Goram Lachem Shechazer HaYetzahar. Since you sin with this Chet HaEgel, and it caused the Yitzhar to come back in you, Shibud Malchias, and the servitude to the other kingdoms. A Tikkun Shalachem, the fixing of this is Shetishmuru Shabsaisai Lashon Rabbi, that you should keep many Shabbosais. The Arminim the Perikol Kisvei Hanal El Male Mishamim Yisrael Shtei Shabbosais, again plural, Miyad Nigalim. Okay. Now I have a nice segula, but it's talking about something a lot of men don't do anymore, but in Israel it's more frequent. It says, I've been meaning to write to you for a while. I'm a huge chassid of the Sefer Zera Shimshon. Not only do I study the Sefer myself, but I also have the chus of spreading the author's Torah through the weekly Zera Shimshon newsletter. Okay. I have been helped beyond all measure by this Sefer, and I do my best to show hakaras hatov for it. I smoked for years. I have no defense other than to admit that we suffer from the mistakes of our youth. The constant smoking harmed me and caused me terrible damage. It was so bad that at times I felt like I couldn't breathe, that I was choking, that no air was entering my lungs. I'd wake up coughing, gasping for air, but there was no relief, and I'd end up running to the local urgent care center in the middle of the night, telling the doctors that I couldn't breathe and begging them to clear my air passages. Waking up in the middle of the night, coughing and gasping for breath made me scared to fall asleep at night. It was a vicious cycle. I can hear you asking, so why didn't you stop smoking? The answer, I was hopelessly addicted. Nicotine addiction, and there's other poisons in those cigarettes that cause people to be addicted. I visited so many doctors, but none of them were able to help me conquer my addiction. I went to treatments and took medicines. Nothing helped. Then one day I discovered a new sefer that I had never seen before. It was written by an Italian Rav. It was called Zera Shimshon. I began learning the sefer and spreading the Torah, partnering with the organization that works tirelessly to bring Zera Shimshon's Torah to the world. From the moment I began learning the sefer, I saw tremendous changes in my life, and I felt as if that I had been given a fantastic medicine. It wasn't long before the pain lessened and my ailments began to dissipate. I was coughing less and able to breathe again. And then, finally, after so many years, I was able to break out of the cycle and stop smoking. I had been trying to do it for years with no success, yet now I was able to do it easily. The Zera Shimshon is part of my life now, and I continue learning it all the time. Even though 2 years after have already passed from the time of the story, I know that the power of this tzaddik stood by me when I needed it most, and I did do my best to bring his neshama nachas ruach. He deserves it. May Hashem help people like him and everybody else that needs the Yeshua and many other different Rashidna areas to have refuah shalema and children. We're praying for a number of couples that need to have children, and also a parnasa berevach. Have a great Shabbos, and don't forget Shabbos. Don't forget to enjoy Shabbos. Kol tov.